Today on the HR Congress podcast, we'll be discussing organizational change, tribal organizations, change management, leadership, and adaptability. This is the HR Congress podcast, episode 43, with Sangbreeta Moitra. Good morning and welcome to the HR Congress podcast today. My name is Ben Churchas, joined by Sangbreeta Moitra. Sangbreeta is a TEDx award-winning speaker, strategist on human behavior, change, and transformation. Sangbreeta researches, speaks on, and creates breakthrough strategies to enable individuals and organizations to transform their mindset, actions, patterns, and consequences to create a successful, impactful, and powerful legacy. She has been featured in numerous international publications, spoken at many events, worked with leading companies, and will be joining us at the Digital HR Innovation Summit in The Hague this April 28th and 29th. And she'll be presenting two sessions at the event, a keynote entitled Creating an Employee Tribe of Powerful Brand Ambassadors in the Age of Social and Digital, and a masterclass on Transform Exponential, from brain to behavior to business to results, transform the pain of change. So Sangbreeta, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We had a conversation at the HR Congress 2019 in Nice, and it's also great, of course, to be able to speak with you again. And I want to go into a little bit more about some of those interesting topics that we touched on in that conversation, as well as what you'll be presenting at the Digital HR Innovation Summit. But before we get into that, could you please tell our listeners a little bit more about your background, how you ended up doing the work that you do, and a little bit more about yourself generally?
Sure, happy to do that. So I studied neuroscience, neurobiology in my university, and I did a lot of courses on neuroscience as well. And ever since childhood, I've been so fascinated by human behavior, by the brain and behavior and how it impacts the world we live in. And after my degree, I went into corporate management in the pharmaceutical industry in the Netherlands. I studied in the Netherlands as well. I was working with neurodegenerative diseases, and that was amazing in two ways. Number one is I really got to understand the impact of what the brain does to our behaviors and how behaviors impact relationships when it came to the world of neuro. So I worked with schizophrenia, depression, major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder. But at the same time, I was also working in a very corporate environment. And I really started to notice these loopholes in the way people were working, in the way corporate strategy works, the way clients, vendors, organizations connect with one another. There's such a distinct power imbalance on the negotiation table. And it always made me wonder, why is there such a big power imbalance? What is the culture of this company? Why is there no defining culture in this organization? And that's when a lot of organizations were also starting to go through change, through transformation. That's when, alongside my full-time project management career, I started creating content through talks, through trainings, workshops, masterclasses on this aspect, on hacking human behavior. It literally started from scratch. And I remember I gave a talk at this small event with maybe 30 people. And I gave about a half an hour talk, and there was someone from Shell in the audience. And the person, she was a manager, she came up to me and said, that was amazing because I was talking about team culture, and I was talking about how feedback impacts not only an employee's career, but also the organization's success, how giving feedback is so important. And she came to me and said, we've never seen things from this perspective before in terms of behavior, the brain behavior and feedback. Could you do this in our company? And that's how it started. My first gig started through Shell, and then more organizations started to come to me. In the meanwhile, in 2017, I won the TEDx Idea Award from TEDx Rotterdam, and then I gave my TEDx talk there. It did pretty well in Holland, and after that, more and more organizations started coming to me. And at a certain point, I couldn't manage a full-time corporate career and an almost full-time speaking, training, advising career, so I had to pick. And I decided to choose my passion and go for it. I think the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Now I'm working full-time with, helping organizations, helping professionals and leaders be able to transform their presence, their impact, their behaviors, what they stand for. So whether it's an organization that's dealing with change and transformation, whether they want to do something about their company culture, whether they want to talk more or deal more about personal leadership, that's where I come in. I really help them understand the strange but fascinating creature that is the human being, and how often irrational, illogical, unpredictable we are as creatures, yet we make phenomenal organizations. Look at the world we've created. So really being able to understand why you behave the way you behave, why do we think, act, decide the way we do, and also being able to understand the person you're working with, understand your decision maker, understand your stakeholder, your client, your customer, hack into their brains, understand why would they give you their time, attention, trust, or money. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, there's a lot of information there. So,
Yeah.
and obviously this ties into, of course, what you're doing with us speaking at the Digital HR Innovation Summit, because there's a lot of transformation going on in the business world. I think it's kind of at this point almost redundant to say, because it has become such an omnipresent state, a constant state of change and flux. And of course, I've mentioned this many times on the podcast before. You know, the world's been changing forever. This is nothing new. Change has been a part of the business world forever, but it's the speed and the depth at which the changes are taking place for many organizations and many industries, staggering at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is largely, not solely, but largely due to the impact of technology.
Yeah.
And today's organizations are now increasingly being run and filtered through the lens of these digital technologies. So my first initial question for you is, and maybe this is just me being a little bit negative in my perception, but how can we ensure a human-first workplace and service that's not sort of dependent on the technology?
You know, when you asked this question, a thought came to my mind. Actually, there's an organization called OECD. It's basically it's a learning and development organization. And they presented this research, or the survey they did, and they presented it in Davos this year. Basically, in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, they had asked 15-year-olds in a survey, what kind of jobs do you envision for yourselves in the future? And most of the children or teenagers voted or answered with teacher, lawyer, doctor, engineer, you know, those very standard answers, so to say, the job titles. And then in 2018, or was it early 2019, they did a survey again with the same number of 15-year-old kids or teenagers, and asked the same question. Okay, what kind of jobs do you envision in your future? And surprisingly for them, the answers were again, teachers, lawyers, accountants, managers, doctors, etc. And the conclusion in that, and often in a lot of these articles that shared the results of the survey, was, how is it that we live in a world of innovation, but children right now, the young minds of today, haven't really progressed since 2008? How is it that they're still choosing the same old jobs when there are so many new jobs available in the market and there are so many different kinds of careers? Are we stuck? Are we not innovative enough? Is our human brain not advanced enough? All these kinds of questions. And I beg to differ with all of them, because why are we asking, first of all, why is the focus of our vision on what is the job that these 15-year-olds want? In fact, of asking them, what job do you want to do? I want to know why you want to do that job. Tell me, why do you want to be a teacher? Why do you want to be, I don't know, a firefighter? Why do you want to be a doctor? When you ask a student, why do you want to be a teacher? And I actually asked my cousin, she is studying in Edinburgh right now, she wants to be a teacher for a certain handicapped students and everything. She's studying psychology. And she's passionate about helping people in a certain way in terms of education and more. So when you ask people why they want to do what they do, you get a way better insight into what's driving them than a job title. And it's the same with us in this period of transformation with technology as well. Jobs become redundant all the time. Companies become redundant. Human beings don't become redundant. Instead of limiting ourselves to what is the job I'm going to do, first we need to ask ourselves, why are we so passionate about doing this particular thing? Or what do I think I'm really great at? What are the basic talents I bring into the market, into the team, into an organization? Start from there. Instead of trying to fit yourself into a job, find a job that fits you, or a career. Instead of trying to squeeze yourself into what you think is the perfect resume. Let the career or the job hunt you down. So I think the way we're looking at career itself and the way we're looking at how human beings will be relevant in the future needs to be changed up a bit. The same way as how we're asking questions to these 15-year-olds. Don't just ask them, what job do you want to do in the future? Ask them, why are you so passionate about this? Or why do you think you will be good at this? You'll get a way deeper and more stronger insight into the mindset of people than staying simply on the surface.
So my initial follow-up to that is, let's imagine a situation where our leaders in an organization, and perhaps we're looking at rethinking the way we bring talents into the organization. Do they need to ask these questions internally about the purpose of their organization? Do they really need to start looking at these questions rather than the simple, who do we want or why do we want them? Let's really focus on the meaning behind the work that we do in this fictitious company.
Absolutely. And if I even think of the HR Congress, I spoke with Eric van Fulpen, if I'm correct? And he did this podcast series as well, or an interview series, and he's now working with AI in HR, right? But when I spoke with him, his actual background is in law and philosophy. I think he majored in philosophy. And it is, if you simply look at it from a perspective of what did this human being do, and they're completely different, backgrounds or educational vocations, basically. But the reason why he's so great in what he's doing right now is how all of this comes together. He did not focus on, for example, that he has a law degree and okay, let's just become a lawyer. But one part of his talent pool is about structure. The other part is about he has a hunger for curiosity, for figuring out the unknown or solving problems that no one else is. And this is how it all combines to now him doing work with AI and HR. So, and if I'm sure if I start asking you about your background and how you're doing what you're doing and where you're headed into the future, I mean, relying simply on what is it that you do or is not relevant anymore, according to me. Even for now, I recently gave a talk with some specialists in the healthcare industry, and they're all working in hospitals or, very, very working with a lot of patients, but almost all of them have something going on the side. They have their own side business, their own entrepreneurship, because they feel that their impact is so much more than just the job they're doing right now. So I think it's really important for us to really ask ourselves, and also in meetings when we have in the company, we really need to figure out why are we doing what we're doing, and also with the individuals, whether it's our strategy, our product, the people who are working to create this product, to make this organization a success. Why are we doing what we're doing? What's really driving us? And sometimes the answer will be something you wish wasn't that, but it's okay because it's going to work out for your future. So you also have to have the courage to be honest and confront it alongside asking these questions.
I sort of had a thought as you were talking there, and I don't want to take us too off on a tangent, but we're now, fortunately for most of the developed world, obviously I'm not speaking for the entire world, but we have this luxury of being able to now look at purpose and say, okay, most of our economic needs are being basically met. The societies have been built up to a point where they're more or less sustainable. What is it now that we can actually do to create value for other people based on our own, not just vocation, but our own desire and actualization? And I think that ties into your point about asking the right questions or getting those right questions out there. Of course, this is a luxury. Let's be very clear about that. But it's a luxury that I think many people can actually now entertain. I'd like to move on to part of your presentation that you're going to be talking about tribal organizations. And there are definitely some advantages about creating a tribe and a tribal organization, whether that's community, shared values, greater potential for teamwork. But I want to touch on some of the disadvantages, perhaps. Do we really need such a tribal workplace to be a successful workplace?
Well, I think it's perfectly fine if people have different ways of expressing who they are. Every human being has different behaviors. They have different ways of approaching a situation. They have different ways of solving things. They have different personalities. I think it's unhealthy and just bizarre to have a team or a tribe made up of clones of one another. However, I do strongly believe that the most important thing that needs to be a common thread in the organization is the belief of why we're there, and belief in the organization, and belief in what you're bringing in together as a team or a tribe for that organization. I also think alongside that, you need to have the courage and the culture, the psychological safety in an organization. And regardless of what kind of organization it is, whichever place on earth, I think every organization definitely needs to have this one thing, which is psychological safety. And it's crazy to me how many organizations don't have that. Just the other day, anyway, I was speaking with a company that was interested in my trainings. And basically, the HR director really wanted my trainings for the organization. And then I had a talk with the CEO. And the CEO said, "Oh, well, our employees don't really face any problems. Yeah, they're fine. They have no problems at all."
Yeah, I believe that.
Is this what you think, or is this what the employees really conveyed through some means or a survey or what? Like, and if they have absolutely no problems, then why am I here? Well, that's what I was thinking to myself, but I couldn't help chuckling with him. It was just so strange to me that a leader feels that his people just have no problems and everything is hunky-dory. Of course, those people should not consider this particular challenge a real challenge because it's nothing. And I think in that kind of scenario, people, there is no psychological safety in that organization. So I would be worried for that employee. So what I think is most important is the people who are working in that organization need to believe and truly believe why that organization exists, and believe in the impact or the impact it's trying to create, or the change it's trying to bring. We have to have that. If you cannot authentically get behind the vision, mission, purpose of an organization, then it's going to be a big problem, because it's going to clash with your values. It's going to clash with your sense of identity, perhaps even esteem, and it's going to affect your performance. And honestly, the organization deserves someone who could justify that position. At the same time, there has to be a culture where people are allowed to safely speak up if they feel that something's not working right. It shouldn't be one where, well, this is the organization. If you don't like it, get out. That's not the culture that is healthy either for the future of our society and for that organization. Such organizations will not last. That, to me, is the most important thing. When it comes to workplace culture, you have to have psychological safety. You have to have a common sense of belief as why are we here and what are we doing together? And also the ability to speak up, stand up and speak up if they believe that the values are not being authentic anymore.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Please carry on.
No, I was just about to say, it reminded me of a presentation from Amy Edmondson that we had a few years ago at the HR Congress, and she spoke about the fearless organization. I believe that was the title of her book as well. And it's essentially this. It's like fearlessness in an organization isn't about being safe. It's about having the ability to speak your mind, to be free at work, to bring your whole self to work, whether that's to disagree or to challenge or to quarrel or to agree or whatever, but to be yourself and contribute authentically to whatever mission or goal that organization has. And if you don't match with the organization, then it's time to go. It's time to find somewhere else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's very important that that there is that kind of give and take in the organization, where there is this understanding, this contract that I'm here to give you my authentic self and to contribute to this goal. And if it doesn't work out, hey, that's fine. We go our ways.
Or, there's different scenarios as well. For example, I've trained quite a few companies in the energy sector. And one of them was such an interesting situation. It was a lot of fun and it was a great experience, but also really gives you insights into the kind of challenges people face internally in an organization. So there was this one department that works with sustainability, climate, and all emissions, sustainability, climate. And they came to me and said, look, we really need to amplify our voice, the way we're presenting ourselves, the way our mission, our vision, our promise stands out, because the business development, the team or the department in the organization, their focus is, of course, more profit, more ventures, more industries, more factories, and they're kind of kind of clamping down on us. And ideally, what has to happen is we have to, of course, grow the business, make it, sustainable transformations, sustainable growth, exponential, but, manageable. And at the same time, it has to be something that benefits our future and not completely destroys the environment. but one department is refusing to work with the other. So help us out. And then I had to go in and basically help them out on how you can create win-win scenarios with different departments who might feel that your purpose or your work in the organization is not serving them. There's such different challenges that organizations are facing right now. It's crazy to me. And it's situations like this. It's other situations where, for example, I was approached by a telecom where they were going through a massive transformation within, and they had a particular department, a very important department within the organization. They had mostly, senior leaders who have worked their entire lives and gotten used to and given great results with a particular kind of working. Only now, suddenly they're being told, it's time to change. Whatever you're doing, it's not going to work anymore. We got to work a new way. And these people are resisting. And they're complaining and they're upset. How do we deal with this? We need them on board. We don't have enough time. Can you help us? And then I had to come in and help them understand the psychology of change, and even enable the people on the other side of the team, of the organization, the ones who are feeling like, oh, why is everyone complaining? Help them understand what are the fears of the people who are, so to say, complaining right now. Really help them understand the psychology of change. Why does the human brain fear change? How can we get on board with change? How can we shift the way we see things? How can we recognize our blind spots? How can we recognize our greatest strengths? What are our self-limiting beliefs? What is the culture of this organization? So, the kinds of challenges that organizations are facing with change or transformation are so varied, but equally fascinating. They teach me every day more and more on how human beings behave and why.
Well, yeah, and that's a very good point, because change is obviously a huge part of the event that we're doing, but also just generally about the world itself and the business world in particular in this context. And we know that change is difficult. It's always going to be difficult. But I've always sort of thought of it in the sense that change is difficult because that's kind of necessary component of change, like forced adaptation, basically. And people will always look for ways to make change easier and less stressful. But I would sort of argue that's kind of missing the overall point. What would your perspective on that be?
Well, that's where I talk a lot about the personal leadership part of it. And the three pillars for me that I talk about a lot on are authority, authenticity, and adaptability. I think oftentimes we fear change, or we feel very afraid of what's to come, and it's often the anticipation of fear is greater than the fear itself, than the threat itself. The anticipation is far worse. So with all these individuals, often I do workshops, or I give interactive talks based on the kind of event, and it's really about delving into what is your true authority, what is your authenticity, what is your adaptability. Are you being intentionally adaptable? So authority is your ethos, your credibility. Why you, why now, why this? For example, if I take away your job title from you, and this is especially relevant in corporates, for some reason, business owners, freelancers, they find it easier to express or to answer this particular question. But when you walk through the doors of a massive organization and everybody in there, you have like 5,000 engineers or 5,000 business analysts or 5,000 associates, it's more difficult for them to answer these questions. So for example, if I take away your job title from you right now, I take away your bullet list of skills, and instead I ask you to show your authority by answering, what is the value that you offer people? What is the value with which you serve people? What would that be? And I'm always amazed to see so many leaders, amazing, experienced leaders, who struggle to answer this question. In fact, I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn a couple of months ago. He was a senior director in a pretty huge Dutch organization, very well-known Dutch organization, and they had this massive reorganization, and unfortunately, along with a lot of people, he too was let go, but with a very comfortable severance package, I believe. So it's not that he's worried about money or anything, but he sent me a message saying, well, I heard about you, I watched your TEDx talk, and the thing is, all my life, I've been lucky. I've been at the right place at the right time. I've done a good job. I graduated, got a great job, then moved into another company and just climbed the ranks. And I was comfortable. I was a director, and now I'm reorganized. Apparently, the job I did is not relevant anymore. And I'm struggling to understand who am I and what do I bring into the workplace. Can you help me? And to me, that was insane. It was insane, but in a very touching way, because this is a human being with over 30 years of experience and suddenly they're questioning what impact do they create in the industry. So as long as, that's the thing, like I believe that when we're going through these periods of change, and also we have no idea what the future holds, okay? We can predict as much as we want. We have no idea what's going to happen 20 years ahead. What you can do is try to understand why you're relevant and why you mean anything in the workplace. What do people see in you? So you have to make sure that your personal leadership is as strong as it can be so that it can soldier through whatever is thrown at you. So what is your personal authority, as I asked? If I take away your job title from you, your bullet list of skills away from you, how are you going to explain the value with which you serve people, the value that you stand for? That's number one. Authenticity is a lot about emotional intelligence. It's a lot about empathy. How do you want people to feel when they work with you? What are the values that you would like to be remembered for? What is the legacy that you would like to leave behind? How would you deal with interpersonal conflict? That's your authenticity. It's also about being vulnerable. I recently worked with a mega retail brand, and they wanted to bring in vulnerability in the workplace. And I'm always, my what do you say, my red signs, or what do you call them? Those alarm signals,
red flags,
they go off. Red flags, yeah, red flags, they go off when a senior leader, and this has happened often, tells me, we want to see more vulnerability in the workplace. We want to see people take more risks. Then I don't even focus on the people anymore. Then I ask the leader, okay, you want to see more vulnerability? You want to see people take more risks? Okay, so how about you tell me, give me a proof of promise. What happened the last time someone came to you with a story of failure? How did you deal with it? Do those people know that they will be completely safe in this organization? They will be supported by you and by senior leadership when they fail in the risks that they just took. Will you be there to support them? And they were quiet. They said, we didn't think about that. I said, yeah, they need to know, they need to be psychologically safe in taking this particular risk. How about give me a previous example of when someone came to you with a story of failure, some work that they were doing in the organization and they failed at it because it was a risk that they had to take. How did you deal with it? And they said, well, no one's ever come to me with a story of like failure, like this person did something, took a chance and failed. It was always like a teamwork. We did a project. It didn't work out sometimes, but nobody really came to me with that. I said, well, that kind of shows you the kind of culture we have in the company right now. So a lot of times people come and say, oh, we want to change who we are. And I always ask them, before you change who you are, you got to know who you are. So who are you right now? What is your company culture right now? If you want to be more vulnerable in the future, if vulnerability is one of the behaviors or the core values that you want to embrace in your future company culture, you need to first find out why there is no vulnerability in your culture right now. Literally, you have to hack deep into your behaviors, your mindset, your thinking, your thought patterns, and create that change from there. And we do these role play exercises. In my sessions, we did role play exercises, and it was amazing to see how deep the problem goes, and really changing behaviors needs to change the way we think about situations. It needs to change the way we gutturally react to situations.
So I'd like to get your thoughts on your two sessions coming up at the Digital HR Innovation Summit. Could you please tell our listeners a little bit more, just in summary, about what they can expect from those two sessions, the keynote and the masterclass?
Sure. The keynote and masterclass is basically going to be about hacking your behaviors, about being able to hack your brain behavior pathway, understand really why you do what you do, why do people do what they do, how can you create a human-first, human-driven workplace, human-first future for the workplace, because technology serves to enhance human connection, not to replace it. And jobs will come and go, companies will come and go, you will always stay relevant. So hack into why you're relevant, what creates your sense of strong personal leadership, what creates a really true, meaningful, purpose-driven culture, your personal sense of self and culture, the team culture, organization culture. We're going to go all deep into this, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more about you, or maybe to reach out with any questions, comments, anything like that?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. You can find me at linkedin.com/IN, as in inside, IN/Sangbreeta Moitra, or you can find me through my website, My email is the best way to get in touch with me. It's sang@sangbreetamoitra.com. So the first 4 letters of my name, sang@sangbreetamoitra.com. I'm also on Instagram. By the way, if anyone's on Instagram, I'd love for you to follow me because I do a lot of surveys and interactions. I do a lot of experiments, human experiments, through my Instagram stories. So if you're interested in having a bit of fun and diving deep into your psyche, and perhaps that will bring out more answers within yourself, then feel free to follow me through my Insta stories. Right now, I'm doing this discomfort experiment which is basically about what creates a sense of discomfort in us when we're faced with a challenge or conflict, whether it's at work or in personal life, and trying to figure out the triggers and how you can ace discomfort. So
Awesome.
You're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and through my email.
Awesome. I think you're the first ever podcast guest that's ever shouted out their Instagram on the podcast. So I feel like it's my duty now to say that you can also follow the HR Congress on Instagram at the HR Congress, just so my social media manager doesn't get mad at me. Okay, awesome. So thank you, Sangbreeta. It was a real pleasure to speak with you today. I'm cognizant of the fact you probably have to head off and do some stuff. So thank you for joining me. Obviously, it was a great pleasure to speak with you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again in The Hague. Actually, not too far away. How many weeks? It's like 6 or 7 weeks, 8 weeks. I can't count.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you again. It was amazing in Nice, and I think it'll be even better in Den Haag.